Hey there, and welcome back to Tempting Fate Tours. Or, if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We're in the middle of the famous Miners on Tour voyage, in which the owners of many dozen Morris miners, from 50 to 75 years old, the cars, not the owners, travel from the UK to Europe and tour around for a week. Tom's car had provided plenty of drama for us right at the start of the event, but the replacement differential seemed to be working well, and it ran just fine the next day. John's 75-year-old red car had just kept on keeping on. Our pal Tom Morris, the one we had beaten in trivia the night before, took his fiancée Emily Cook for a drive in John's red lowlight.
What the?
We got some pictures of the car in front of a very scenic historic windmill, and I should add that Tom and Emily now have a lowlight of their own, a tourer. We also watched Chris Ryder pressed into service to check out the same owner's car that he'd had to replace a differential in the year before, some owners. The elaborate events calendar, put together by Lisa Williams and other organizers, shows all the activities inflicted... Pardon me, I'll read that again. Shows all the activities offered up to attendees for our pleasure and delight. Tuesday's activity was a tour of Actif 20, which turned out to be a brewery, always a popular destination. Eventually, we mustered all the cars and switched to bikes, or e-bikes, or if you wanted to ride in noisy splendor, tuk-tuks. But everyone arrived safely to find that the brewery actually had an interesting auto museum. It had steam engines, it had some esoteric farm tractors, and there were a couple of rolling mechanical objects that we're not quite sure what they were. In retrospect, we probably regretted not trying the beer spa. Actif loved us so much they even made an Instagram reel of our cars. Eventually, we reversed the process.
Yeah, thank you.
What happened? Tried turning it off and back on again?
Drove back to the campground for the branch dinners. There are about 36 branches of the Morris Minor Owners Club. We ended up hanging out with the Bristol and Coventry Warwickshire branch, who threw a barbecue, and a Hawaiian party at Steph's. That's Steph of I Drive a Classic. Check it out if you haven't. The next day, it rained. A lot, intermittently, all day. We didn't actually do any driving of the cars. John and Tom each had work to do, so basically each of us hung out in the tent, on our computers, pausing only occasionally to go outside, squelch through puddles, and commiserate about how it was raining with other campers. That evening was the big dinner at the campground's main restaurant. They did a good job coping with more than 100 Brits, along with some random Europeans and even a couple of ungrateful ex-colonials. That would be us. Remember Spotty, the apparently gender indeterminate, large, fluffy, spotted animal mascot? Unexpectedly, Spotty showed up at dinner and spent quite a while, including ruffling Tom's hair in a rather suggestive manner. It would be improper, ungracious, and inappropriate of us to suggest that Spotty looked a bit the worse for wear. Perhaps a good dry cleaning would help? The evening ended with more beer, as it does. Before we get to the rest of the week, we realized we needed to address the question everybody keeps asking, so how did the cars run? And the answer is, just fine. Yes, they're British. Yes, they have Lucas Electrics. We'll pause while you run through all the Lucas jokes. But honestly, Morris Minors are dead simple. They're generally quite sturdy and reliable. And Tom's Traveler ran fine once his rear end got sorted out. His differential, don't give me that look. It was a bit of a work to drive, though, with its mix of peculiar gear spacing from the factory and the wrong rear end ratio.
Did you say you had calculated 1.2 roundabouts per kilometer?
John's red lowlight was a bit nicer to travel in. It had all its carpets, so it was quieter. We think they're the original 75-year-old carpets. Day 4, Thursday. The event was the Scenic Drive organized by the Dutch Morris Minor Club. As we mustered, John had to do the Doya Gao pose for our Isuzu comrades both in the States and in Japan, as is the tradition, handed down low upon generations. The Brits were completely mystified by all this, even after we explained in some detail. Our Dutch friends had thoughtfully prepared a detailed itinerary with route instructions in kilometers, also miles, because that's what are in a Morris Minor, and even yards. We toured through some lovely Dutch countryside, and eventually we came to a small rise, which rather soon became a fairly steep hill, which was slow going for cars sold with 27 to 48 horsepower as new. Everybody did finally make it to the top, and we had excellent views of the countryside. One club member shot some great drone footage to top it off. While at the top, we commented to one of the Dutch organizers that we thought the Netherlands were flat. They are, he said with a straight face. This is not the Netherlands. This is Germany. Going down was easier, though by the end of the hill, Tom's car had ejected fluid all over its left front wheel. Luckily, it turned out not to be brake fluid, and after he repacked and re-greased the bearings and adjusted the brake shoes in case they were dragging, the problem was solved. Then it was time for lunch at the Eat Café de Zaak. Our Dutch friends had thoughtfully provided several dozen parking permits, which had to be displayed on the windscreen. Drivers moved the little dials to show what time they arrived and walked away. So civilized. After that, beer and dinner, and then an auction. We were restrained. We came away only with a club badge and a nice Aston Martin hat. And then it was Friday, and we realized, with a pang, it was our last day of touring. We got up early to drive to Geithoorn. The highlight of the trip was a canal boat tour, and in an electric canal boat, no less. It was a wonderful, peaceful tour. It was fun to gaze at the houses on the banks. Some were actually quite old. There were some comments about the life-size bronze sculpture of a naked lady right on someone's front lawn. Shocking. It rained for a while, and then it quit, and then it rained some more, and then it quit. We got nervous around rain, but Rain-X proved to be our friend for the whole trip. We stopped after the boat trip for Tom to fuel up the Traveler. And this is where we have a little confession. Tom did the entire trip running off a 3-gallon boat tank.
Yep, it's an 11-liter tank.
That he hid underneath the rear seat. He did a lot of fueling up. Back at the camp, John had to replace a tail lamp bulb, and we made an amazing discovery. There was a tiny 75-year-old label explaining the wiring of the tail lamp inside the glass. Then it was back to Spottyland for our very last time, for the farewell drinks and the raffle. And Tom and John, that's us, were really honored to be given a Hero of the Hour award. It's meant for those who go above and beyond, which usually means fixing a car at the side of the road in the rain. But in this case, apparently, being nuts enough to show up in 2 minors shipped over from the States and do the whole trip and replace a differential qualified. We're deeply grateful, and we would like to thank the Academy. All too soon, it was time to pack up the cars for an early start on Saturday for our long trip back to the port, then a ferry ride over the channel, and then the cars would touch UK soil for the first time in 70 to 75 years. And then we had some more adventures planned. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit like, comment. We do actually answer comments. Tell your friends, etc., etc. See you next time. I really need to remember to push the video button to record before I spend 10 minutes hanging around.